I just wanted to use this opportunity and this great weather that I'm having right now in my hometown to speak about something that I wish to speak about. And there's many things I wish to speak about. I guess primary thing that's kind of bugging me these past few days and maybe even these past few months, sort of creeping in and out of my consciousness, is this idea of boredom and free time. And it's something that I briefly touched upon in my book that I wrote recently. It's a pretentious book. It's a book that talks about global issues, and the reason I took upon such a big task, or why I thought it's relevant for me to do so, is because I was born in one country, in Bosnia, which is a developing country. It's a transitional country. And I moved to Norway about 8 years ago. So I got to see both sides of the coin when it comes to economics, when it comes to how different societies engage, and people in those societies, how they engage, how they function, what they deem as important. And I can't escape subjectivism or subjective perspective there, but I tried to be as objective as I could, and I tried to reach the core, the humanness, the point that every person can grasp, as much as I could. It's still a huge task, but I think I nailed down a lot of what us as humans can connect to, and I think it's a good argument to say that there's a lot more that connects us as humans than what separates us from each other. And to say that, to each their own, on one hand, it is correct to say that individualism, as I discussed in the book, has its place in the world. But it can't be the ultimate answer. It's too harsh to be the ultimate answer, and it's not fitting for a human to only rely on it. But the question that I wanted to pose for today's video, for this first one that I'm posting, is the idea of boredom and free time. And I think the reason I think that's such an important topic to discuss with yourself and with others, and just to make it a point of discussion in general, is because what you end up doing with the boredom and with the free time is essentially what defines you. And what seems to be happening is a lot of people already found their answer once they signed a long-term employment contract. Because it takes so much of your time, it tends to be the defining factor of your personality. It doesn't need to be a bad thing, but I think, or at least the way I see things, the way I experience things, most people get stuck. Most people find something and then they get stuck on the position, and then they try to compensate in different ways. They try to use their free time, but they get so tired, or it simply gets too complicated to do anything that they would actually like to be doing, to the point where most of the free time and boredom is used as time for leisure, or time for very raw and sort of primal, which they are part of a human experience, but very primal satisfactions and necessities. So there's this balance between disconnecting yourself and then indulging or overindulging into very quick satisfactions, watching TV, watching series, or anything of that sort, where you're not really doing anything, you're just trying to pleasure yourself. It's a sort of an unbalanced reality, and I feel like the reason we came there is because those who are over us, those who govern us, they're very much aware of the fact that humans will interact with boredom. And they will interact with the anxiety of not knowing what to do with your life and what to do with your free time. They very carefully, they very carefully give you answers that will sort of keep you in check, because people from the point of boredom can go to many different directions. But I think the way the things are set up in a society, it's very predictable where people will go, what's desired and what's expected of them. And it's a very clever thing that they did, but I'm not gonna, I don't want to discuss that aspect of it. I want to discuss the human personal relation to boredom, which I believe it's being by us misused. I don't think we're using the art, the beauty of boredom, the beauty of free time well enough. And I think the fact that we're not doing that is one of the major factors why people are feeling lost and why they're delegating so much of their time and so much of their lives to big corporations, to celebrities, to really just empty concepts that they just latch onto because that's the most impressive first thing that that they see and that they can sort of feel any fulfillment off of. And I think that is a great disgrace to humans. So I think the question of boredom needs to be answered much more carefully. It needs to be examined by every individual. And I think even as early as like first grades or second grades or third grades in school, we should be taught that boredom is a reality and that not knowing what to do is a reality, and that it can be approached with care, with certain tools, with certain rational, emotional, spiritual tools. And then from there we can extract answers which we as individuals, all individually, can sort of carve and fit into and explore, etc. I think letting people to be bored and then just give them a really sort of harsh answer, you just work all your life until pension, or you just do this or that, and then you find this unbalanced balance of working and then doing leisure and then traveling and during summers and stuff. I think that's a concept that's on its way out, mainly because people are just not going to be able to cope with that. I think once we as a species have sort of tasted freedom, and I'm not saying that this is the only generation that tasted freedom, but I think once we taste what freedom can give us in any given generation, in any given context, it's hard to limit yourself back to what used to be, to let's say more confined and primitive answers. But again, if we don't have the necessary tools, if we're not given the necessary knowledge to think about boredom, because most people don't even think that that's a thing you can think about. So if you think that that's not something you should be thinking about, you're kind of part of the, let's say, an issue of a problem, a global one, where we have pre-made quick answers to boredom, but they're devastating. And I think at one point, one way or another, we're going to have to stop relying on those answers. And I think we should do that now before it becomes a necessity to stop with those answers. Because right now we can still choose. But I think if too many people get annoyed by the way the system and the sort of status quo, the social status quo has given them the answer, if they get really sick of it, they get really tired of it, I feel like we might start seeing a lot of revolting and rioting, which is not very civilized, and might be expressed in ways which sort of go beyond the scope. Like, not only are people annoyed and they feel this existential just dread, but they have no confines and no tools and no means to sort of achieve any sort of balanced approach to an answer. And then they might start jumping from one side to the extreme other side, and then we might start seeing all sorts of things happening. So I think, and I hope, that people will start speaking about what free time means, what boredom means, that boredom, the way I like to put boredom and describe boredom is, it's basically like soil for a flower. It's very almost disgusting to handle, and it's stinky, smelly, and it's disturbing to an extent, but it's very nurturing, and it sort of gives you flourish and gives you gives you many different colors and ways to shine. You only need to be careful with it, and you need to know what to do with it. Otherwise, it's just going to be soil. It's just going to be what that is, waste. And I think that aspect, I believe that it needs to be discussed. Once we find good enough answers for people for boredom and for free time, I believe that people will innately balance their lifestyles out, and we will no longer accept these very unhuman answers, very unbalanced answers to the question. And that might lead us into a more prosperous society where people are, and I'm talking about a global society at this point, where people are more attuned to what they came to do in this world. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I think I unlocked the topic. I think I put it out there, whoever comes about. But I think this is something that should reach widespread attention, because it is, I think, one of those key questions and one of those key answers that you derived from that question, which will define a lot of what happens in the world after certain points, or after a certain point in time. So yeah, I think the answer to what do I do with boredom, what is boredom, what is it telling me, what is free time, how it should be used, and what am I doing here, are all correlated questions that need heavy inspection and need proper answering.